Greetings, Tezos Nation. Welcome to a very special edition of TezTalks Radio. I'm Stu from the Tezos Commons, host of TezTalks Live, filling in for your regular TezTalks Radio host, Marissa True, who is away today. On today's episode of TezTalks Radio, I'm joined by actor, poet, and notable Tezos ambassador Laurence Fuller, as well as actor and filmmaker Vincent D'Onofrio. How are you both today?
Good. Hi.
Good.
How are you, Stu? Okay.
I'm well. Welcome. On TezTalks, we're fairly used to having a star-studded guest lineup, but I think this is the first time we've had not one but two movie stars with us on the show. It's awesome to have you both here. To start us off, can you maybe just tell us a little bit about what brought you each into the world of Hollywood theater and movies?
You want to start, Laurence?
Sure, of course. It was a passion I had since I was young, cinema. And I guess I grew up in an art world family. There was art and paintings on the wall throughout my childhood, but I wanted to step into it and live an adventure. And I really gravitated to cinema. And as that sort of matured, as I got older, I found films of, Martin Scorsese, Daniel Day-Lewis, Vincent D'Onofrio. And I started taking acting more seriously, delving into what it was as an art form and as a craft. And I went to train at a drama school at Bristol Old Vic Theatre School, and got my foundations in Shakespeare and theatre, and then got cast in some independent films in America, and got involved in the whole independent film world in LA, and basically that sort of brought me at some point to finding Vincent on Twitter, and finding that he was actually quite active and quite receptive to people talking to him about the art form and whatever he was posting about creatively. So we connected some years ago over acting, and seeing his poetry that he started to post online. One day I was like, I think somehow he'd come across a collaboration I'd done and reposted it, and then I remember going to sleep. I was so excited that he'd posted it, and then I remember going to sleep that night and just thinking, like, what have I got to lose? I put in the comments, what about a collaboration? And I was like, why not? What have I got to lose? But then in the morning I woke up, he'd messaged me like, what do you mean by collaboration? And then, this whole journey here sort of unfolded all from there.
Very cool. How about yourself, Vincent?
I grew up with, a mother that was artistic and a father as well. And my parents split up, so I just ended up with my mom, but I lived both in the South and the North. I lived in Florida and in Brooklyn, New York. I was born in Brooklyn. And I was, naturally, I could draw, and I listened to music, a lot of music at a very young age, because I had three older sisters who were hippies, and so I was turned on to all this different kind of music and all these different kinds of people. And my father, when I would see my father, he was always surrounded with artists, and he always started community theaters wherever he lived and stuff. And so I was just, I didn't play sports or anything like that when I was a kid. I was mainly into the arts, and film and theater both was a huge thing for me. I loved going to the theater, and I loved watching movies. And when I was old enough, after high school, I traveled across country with one of my best friends. We bought some old car and traveled across country from Miami to San Francisco. And by the time we got to San Francisco, it was quite a journey. he had decided to join the Navy, and I had decided to go back to New York and maybe try to be an actor, go to acting school. And so I did. And I moved, I joined the American Stanislavski Theater and studied under a woman named Sonia Moore, who basically wrote all the books in America about Konstantin Stanislavski's system of acting. And did a lot of theater with her. We traveled a bit and we traveled colleges across the country and did a lot of classics and stuff. And then I got persuaded by a method actor to join a class which was being taught by a woman named Sharon Chatton. She was a member of the Actor Studio, and I must have been like maybe 19 or 20 here in New York. And I just started studying method acting with her, and she's still my mentor today after all these years. And this is, 40 years ago or more. And then I fairly quickly caught on to what method acting was. It took me a few years to understand it and do a bunch of shitty plays that, there was somebody masturbating in the audience sometimes, and like really run down theaters in New York City, off, Broadway. And, but eventually I failed enough to start to succeed and fail and succeed and fail and succeed. And then I ended up on Broadway. And then shortly after that, a friend of mine was doing the Stanley Kubrick movie, Full Metal Jacket. And they were on hiatus because I don't know if you guys, I know Laurence knows, but I'm not sure if you know, Stu, that Stanley Kubrick takes a year sometimes or more to make a movie. And so they were on hiatus in New York, and him and his wife, Matthew Modine it was, and his wife Carrie. And I asked him what they were up to, and he said, there's this, I'm doing the Stanley Kubrick movie, and there's this part that we don't know what it is because he hasn't released the first half of the movie yet. We're just shooting the second half. And he goes, but there's a lot of people sending tapes. You should send a tape. And long story short, I sent a tape, and I got the part, and that was my first movie. And I haven't stopped acting since. I haven't stopped working since Stanley gave me that job when I was a kid.
Right on.
Basically, yeah.
So there's a cool pattern there where you started off sending in a tape, and then Laurence makes a comment on a Twitter post, and now here we are, right?
Yeah.
And I'm curious, maybe you could talk a bit about how that initial meeting led the two of you down the rabbit hole into the blockchain space.
Just from I'm very much a layman when it comes to the whole NFT world. I'm slowly but surely being able to begin to understand. I mean, I'm just barely scratching the surface still, but with all the technical aspects of it. But Laurence to me is not just that. He's also an artist. He's not just a tech savvy. He's also an artist, and so we communicate on that level fairly well. I would say really well, actually. And so through that kind of communication and writing stuff and editing stuff together, editing the writing and stuff like that, and I'm picking up on the whole technical aspect of how to make NFTs and how to use AI in a kind of very kind of as in a kind of a filmic poetry kind of way, What do you call it, Laurence? It's cinematic. What do you call it?
Cinematic art.
Cinematic poetry or something.
I mean, yeah, poetic cinematic.
Poetic cinematic. There you go. Yeah,
it's the best way I think I've found to sum it up in a sentence.
Yeah. Well, having looked at the stuff, it definitely fits.
Yeah. I mean, I see it as, cinematic when we're telling a linear story, which we've done once now with Sparrow, it feels very cinematic. when we're not doing the linear stuff, a typical narrative kind of thing, and we're doing poetry, it feels that the end result feels like a filmic process, and definitely feels like poetry, like moving poetry, moving, I guess, in the sense of emotional and visual. It's I think it's fantastic. I think that I think that we are, Laurence and I are, I know he is, and I'm definitely joining in with him. We're definitely scratching the surface like crazy to get into it as deep as we can, so that we can move this kind of new way of looking at NFTs and how to use AI as a tool, without taking the human experience out of it, which is what everybody's so frightened of right now in my business. And I think they have a right to be frightened. I could go on about that, but unless you ask me questions, I won't.
Yeah.
But
Well,
wouldn't you say?
Go ahead.
I've been super curious about what your reaction would be when I first took your likeness and created it with AI in that collaboration we did, Reflections of Ours, which is on Tezos as well. But I was super curious, and I still. What was your first reaction to seeing this computer generated version of yourself?
Well, I mean, I feel like I've been doing that my whole career. It's like, every character I play is different. And I feel like, oh, I could, I see, I'm playing that guy. That's how I saw it. It didn't take anything away from me. I didn't feel like I was being robbed or anything. I wasn't threatened by it.
There is a perception, kind of universally, there's this perception that these kind of technologies are going to somehow take things away from people, right? Be it jobs, or be it their likeness or whatever.
Yeah. But I mean, for sure they are going to. And that's just the history of technology. Technology has always changed things, and people don't like change. But I think before I go into saying little taglines like that, I think I should tell you exactly the way I feel about the whole thing, so that I'm not misunderstood. Can I do that? Mm-hmm. So the idea of a company using AI to cut a trailer. Okay, let's talk about that for a second. So personally, this is all my opinion, my personal opinion, I don't like half of the trailers out there that are cut by human beings. And some of them are just ridiculous and show only the best bits of the movie. And then you go see the movie and, oh, there's only 5 good bits in the whole movie, and the movie sucks, So then there are these incredible movies that are badly cut into trailers, which make the movie look so boring that you never go see it. And that, so there's that. But with that, there are amazing editors out there that, as any artist would, can cut a trailer that's incredible, that makes you want to go see a movie. And the ones that I've seen that are cut by AI, they're terrible. They're terrible. They're bland, and they're like television commercials, to sell something, sell soap. And that's terrible. And so that terrible thing that AI cuts is the same to me as the terrible ones that human beings do. It's all crap. It all fits in the crap slot.
That's fair.
So I've always thought of art as being done on a certain level, and which is a kind of high-end level that comes truly through the human experience. And then there's this other end of the business, which is just for commerce, to make money, to sell quickly, get out there in volume, low overhead and lots of volume. And that's a world that makes tons of money for studios and production houses and filmmakers that want to do that kind of stuff, and television, obviously. And that's great, but I don't, I don't have to live in that world. I don't have to think that way. I
Mm.
can stay in the world where I appreciate things that are coming truly from real artists and human experiences. The thing
Yeah.
about an artist is that in my lifetime in the business, which is about 40 years, I've been super lucky, and I've been around amazing artists of all kinds, not just actors, but musicians and poets and painters, and it's just down the line, crazy amount of different types of artists. And the one thing all the really good ones, or great ones, if you want to say, have in common is that their work comes from their human experience. It's clear. Like, you might meet an artist you would never want to live with this person. You barely want to hang out with them. They can't think straight. They're fickle. They change their opinions on a dime. They lie and cheat, and they'll do anything because it's just their personality type.
Mm-hmm.
But then when you see their art, it's like that. It's that. And that's in the art. And you're like, oh my God, this is amazing. But I still don't want to hang out with the guy or the girl, So that's what all great artists or good artists have in common, is that what you see in their art is coming from their life and the way that they are built. And it's a human experience. AI cannot do that. It will never be able to do that.
No.
AI is a mockingbird. It can mimic things really, really well.
Ultimately, all of these things are tools, right? And they're tools that artists can use to create art.
Exactly. Yep. So my point being is that if you've got this extremely intelligent mockingbird, and an artist like Laurence or myself can feed that mockingbird information, the mockingbird is going to spit out eventually something that helps us tell our story in the way that we guided it to do so. So somebody asked me on Twitter the other day, would I work in a project that had to do with that was AI was being used as a tool? And I said, absolutely, I would, as long as every department is headed by a real live person. The writer, the production design, every department in that production needs to be led by a real live person. And that tool of AI is an incredible thing to use. And so
absolutely,
that's how I feel about it. And unfortunately, there are going to be people, and there are now, right now, here and now, that are going to take AI and try to mimic greatness. And they're going to do it for low cost and high volume, so they can get things out there that sell and spend very little money on it and make lots of money for them. That's great. But remember when I was talking about the two sides of things, the crap and the high-end art, the really good stuff? That falls into the crap area and always will. Because people are always going to look to the human experience for the good stuff. And so, like everything in this world, there's a division, and art has had a division in it since it started, from people drawing on caves. There's bad art and there's good art, and bad art sells and good art sells. It's just that simple. So to me, if the division becomes a great one, it's because the companies are trying to make more money and hire less people, unfortunately. And they're going to succeed at that, most likely, and that's going to be that other type of cinema, that other type of storytelling. And if that's what people want, then they can go have it. But there's always going to be the genuine people that are alive with a heartbeat and a soul and a human experience that can still make stuff always, that will still sell and that will still have an audience always, because it is truly coming from the human experience. And they can use AI as a tool if they choose to.
And that's why we're all here today, is because the two of you as artists have begun experimenting with tools, and you've begun producing work using these tools. So I'm really curious how that experience of experimenting and trying them out has impacted the way that you both perceive these technological tools.
I mean, Vincent has seen quite a lot of the outputs that I'm sort of generating, because we get in chats and in text threads between us, and I'll send him tests, like, what do you think about this direction that this is going aesthetically, like the look of like this character, or like the look of the environment, and I'll have a lot of notes and direction on it. And also, I'll take that away and generate thousands of different outputs and images that I then take and compose into something else. So there's a ton of editing that goes into it, and sort of like Vincent was alluding to, there's no way that I think if you took me out of the equation, then there wouldn't be much to, I don't know, it would just sort of be the infinite mush that we already have,
Yeah.
It could be anything,
Yeah. It
would lack story. It would lack human story. And there's if you think about the last time you had a really good kiss with somebody and you kissed them, and how that felt for the both of you, and how that went through the both of you simultaneously. And it's a very human experience, a very simple thing to imagine, because most of us have experienced it. And then if you were to write 3 words on a piece of paper after that happened, what would those words be? They would be purely inspired by that kiss. And a computer can't do that. A computer can never experience a kiss.
Mm-hmm.
And it can mimic it, but it's dead inside. Their mimic has no life. It has no heartbeat.
If you look
go ahead.
quickly,
Sorry.
Look at some of the best poems throughout history. They're really simple.
Yeah.
And even actually the ones most recently, and I think of the poetry of Ocean, who he actually was the poet that they used for that script, The Kindergarten Teacher, with Maggie Gyllenhaal recently. And there was one poem that repeats throughout the film that's like really, the whole film sort of pinges on this one poem about this bull in the garden and this little boy, and it's like the manifestation of his anger. But he's just talking about this bull in the garden, and standing next to a yellow house, and that's it. Like, that imagery is quite simple, but it has so much meaning to it, and so much, like, it gives me chills thinking about that image. It's just really simple.
Yeah.
And your project Sparrow uses AI generative imagery attached to human written poetry written by
Well, so
Vincent,
Sparrow is like a Southern noir. It actually has a linear narration to it. It's telling a story about, well, I won't tell you particulars, but it's telling a story, and it's a noir story. It's a dark story, and it's a thriller, so to speak. And so we've tried to, and I think we've done well with it, is to use AI to like what Laurence was just saying about, he'll say, what about, do these types of images work? And I might say back to him, well, I think we need to go more like Manet, than, like a different artist, like we should go in this area, and I'll send him portraits of the artist that I'm trying to explain to him that this is more of the images we need. And then he'll either agree or he won't. And if he agrees, let's say, he will go in that direction with the AI. Or if casting's something of like, if it's me, I'll say, use photos of me when I was in my 20s, and we're lucky because there's tons of them, out there on the internet, and so he'll feed all these images of me in my 20s, and suddenly we've cast the perfect character that is kind of me and kind of not, just like when I'm acting. Mm-hmm. And then he'll say, well, what about this character? And I'll say, well, here's a bunch of pictures of my daughter. She would be perfect for this. And then it will spit out this. Even my daughter is like, oh shit, like that's not me, that's me. And I'm like, exactly, yeah. And so we'll cast this whole story in a linear way, and environments. I'll send him pictures of towns and the kind of towns I'm thinking about, and he'll be inspired to send me stuff and say, I'm going to go in this direction or that direction. And so we're storyboarding basically the whole thing for the computer and for the end. And the computer is, the computer is the paintbrush, and we are holding the palette and the brush.
Absolutely makes sense. And the end result is very beautiful. I did really think it was cool. I'm wondering, maybe this is a better question for Laurence, but can you explain the connection between your film Sparrow and Tezos?
Yeah, I mean, so it's an interesting journey that I had to Tezos, which came in the first wave of artists using Hisset Nunc, and it was actually this is a nice bit of the history of it. I'd minted this piece that was a whale, a collaboration with my mother, on OpenSea and Ethereum, and I posted it, and there was some sort of ecological, themes to it, and that was the piece that Vincent first posted of mine. And at the time, as you know, Stu, this is no longer an issue, but I don't know if Vincent knows this, but at the time, Ethereum, which was the another blockchain, had a ton of ecological problems to it, and it was using up a ton of fuel. So, and a bunch of Vincent's fans quite rightly said, how can you present this piece on Ethereum when it's burning up so much fuel? And I thought that was actually right. So that's what made me switch over to Tezos. It was Earth Day. And so I started using Tezos as a clean option for the technology. So it wasn't using fuel. So it was green friendly. And now Ethereum is also, post-merge, it doesn't have that same problem. But at the time, it was a thing. So that's actually how I came to start using Tezos in the first place. So it was only right that our first collaborations with Vincent were on Tezos. And there was a huge, art community that had built up around us in that space of time as well, that was just, here for the art. Mm-hmm. So our collaborators were in that ecosystem. And then Sparrow, Sutu is, an OG. The neons are on Tezos. Myself and Vincent, I think it came out of the team really wanting it to, be a part of our community in that way. And then also getting some, I think Sutu got some love from the Tezos Foundation for his cube format. And being able to present in Lisbon was in part thanks to Tezos as well. So, which was the big factor, I think, for Sparrow, because those immersive screens that they had in Lisbon were just like unbeatable. They were massive. They were 18-meter screens, and they were all around. And so to fully, feel the immersive qualities of the cinematic art, it was important that we did that, I think. It was like in a moment in time where the entire NFT community, everyone interested in what was going on in the art scene and in digital art, had their eyes sort of looking at what was going on in Lisbon and that particular stage. So to have Sparrow presented there was important.
Mm,
and it looked amazing on those big screens all
I
around.
bet it did.
Um,
So you on the
yeah,
on the one hand you have Sparrow, the film that's sort of powered by Tezos, using generative art and using human input, and then on the other hand you have the Cube. I'm just trying to understand: is the Cube NFTs that are related to the film that people can collect?
yeah. It'll be one and the same. So we did have to adapt for the screens at Lisbon a cinematic cut that was just the the film, the AI film.
Mhm.
But then the finished piece that everyone's going to interact with is going to be the cube for Sparrow. It'll be the one piece. It will be the cube that's designed by Sutu. That's six-sided, and then you can move it around in AR. And then each side is a different room, and you step in that room, and
And
there's
you're in the movie?
animation. You're like in the movie.
Okay.
Exactly. And then each of the six sides that you go in is like a different part of the movie, but it has the narration to the poem and the story playing over the top. So each time someone experiences it, it will be different, and the audience is like the director in that way.
That's amazing. So if people are curious about Sparrow and about the Cube, where can they go to check these things out?
That will be featured drop on object in about a week. Sutu is just fixing a technical glitch with the cube format, and the team are hard at work on that. But so that's going to be the featured drop on object in like a week. Sutu also has a dedicated website for it. I'm sure everyone in Tezos community knows Sutu Eats Flies is his. Sutu Eats Flies is his handle, and
One of my favorite handles.
yeah. So his more info on like the cube and that project is in his handle. But if not, yeah, keep your eyes on object.
So the Cube and Sparrow project sounds like it's a really experimental process for both of you to sort of, as you say, scratch beneath the surface a little bit and explore this technology and what it has to offer. At this stage, what do you both feel like is the end goal of that experimentation in your minds?
Well, in my mind, and Laurence, correct me if I say anything stupid, please. In my mind, I would like to be able to take it further and actually let's if you think about art that hangs on a wall, an oil painting or an acrylic or some kind of pop art graphic, or art that you frame and maybe hang on a wall. In my mind, the absolute perfection for me when it comes to working with Laurence in this whole NFT kind of / AI world would be to think about a room, a real room, not a virtual room, that you walk into, and hanging on the wall is an event. Several portraits, several paintings, landscapes that when you walk into the room, all together, hanging separately, they make an event happening. And that event, let's say it's about, let's say it's a theme, has a theme, like, I don't want to give away any of the things that we're working on, but let's just pick like War and Peace, for instance.
Mm-hmm.
That you could create different portraits that are hanging on the wall, that are moving, filmic or poetry that's cinematic portraits, and they are moving and they're telling a story written by a human being, and whether it's a poem or some kind of linear story. And the images that you're seeing are taking you through this story with the music, of course, which is also eventually going to be scored by a real live composer. And the idea of somebody being able to hang one of those or all of those in their home, is quite something to me.
Mm-hmm.
And it has to work as well as a Rembrandt, how it can just hang on a wall forever and ever and ever. And so the struggle to achieve that through this kind of work that we're doing is quite a struggle. And all art, to achieve 100% in art, it's always a struggle to achieve 100%, because every artist knows that it's not possible to do that. But we keep struggling to do it anyway, and that struggle becomes our performance. That's what the audience gets. So in a perfect world, that the struggle to do what I'm talking about would be what I would want the audience to be able to experience in a room as an event, with moving poetry and moving cinema created by human experiences, by real people, but painted with a brush that's called AI.
Very interesting. What do the two of you think it would take to convince art consumers that this is the way forward?
We don't have to convince them. No artist has to convince anybody of anything.
If you build it, they will come.
No, you just, there's an old trick when it comes to being an actor or an artist, and you learn this from the best. Do your thing. Just do it. Just do it.
Mm-hmm.
Don't talk about it. Do it. And don't try to sell it. Just do it. And that's the task at hand.
And I guess we don't know if it's, as you say, something that's going to be able to hang on the wall and be relevant forever until we try, right?
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, Picasso wasn't painting the chair and saying, God, I can't wait till I die and this thing becomes famous.
I certainly hope not.
Well, no, he was already pretty famous when he was young. He was like,
but
ton of cash out of his chest.
Exactly. Yeah. But it's you don't. That's not the it's not the reason to do it. It's like, it's that's why it's so fun, Stu, is because it's it's like on movie sets. I've worked with some incredible crews in my life, like that I know their families and their kids, and camera department and all the different departments, wardrobe, and I've worked with so many different crew members and gotten to know them over the years. And when they're coming up in the business, most of them are taught, especially production assistants, are taught not to put their hand in the cage when it comes to the artist, to steer clear, and we use that. The artist knows that, and we use it. We do what we want when we want to do it, and don't put your hand in the cage. That's it.
That's fair. So with Sparrow in the Cube, you, as you said, you recently did the sort of unveiling at NFT Lisbon, and I'm wondering how that went. How was it received? How did it feel to see it presented to people and see people experience it along with you?
Yeah, it was a dream. And part of my speech actually was about dreams, and about how poetic cinema is like a dream, and that we're really trying to come closer to it with each piece, and to have it like fully immersive like that, I think was an absolute beautiful use case for digital art. Maybe use case is a difficult word even, because it doesn't do justice to an experience and a moment, and feeling a poetic cinema all around you. Is like is I think dream is the best word that I could possibly think of. And how can we play with our dreams? I think now is we have more tools than ever to play with our own dreams, and to play with others, and to present. Hey, do you want to experience a totally different kind of dream? So I mean, storytelling, I think in that way has just been exploded open, and we can go anywhere. So anyway, your question was about Lisbon and seeing it on those big screens, and I mean, the reception I think people really had was much the same. They sort of were coming up to me afterwards and talking about how they hadn't seen anything like it, and they got chills, and they loved it. And seeing like Trevor Jones and Violet Jones in the audience, just like captivated, looking around, was just a great moment for me as well personally. So I'm excited to share more. They have more footage that we can share from the presentation coming out pretty soon. So I'm excited to share that. And I'm excited for where we can go next in terms of these events, and talking to different companies that are using immersive art for their events, and how we can work with them for the next experience. I definitely learned a lot, and
as you sort of build towards this drop that you're talking about, that's going to be taking place on Object in the coming weeks, is that when there's going to be an opportunity for people to interact with these pieces?
With Sparrow Cube, exactly. It'll be an AR file, so they'll be able to take that. And as you know, Sutu is an amazing whiz with AR. It's something that he's been doing for decades as his main job, and his company that he owns now. So it'll be an AR file that they can take and place anywhere. They could, with their phone, if they had it, they could place it here on the table.
Yeah. Well, the Cube definitely had a very, very strong AR feel to it, from what I saw.
If they have, it's compatible with Oculus as well, so they'll be able to, exactly, walk inside of it.
So, having gone through that experience and done the unveiling at Lisbon, and building towards this drop coming up, and people having the opportunity to interact, what is next for the two of you? Do you have any other exciting rollouts or projects in the works?
Well, I'm writing every day geared towards these. One thing that Laurence brought to me, and then one thing that I brought to him. So, I just sent him the first piece of a couple other pieces that has to do with something that he brought, that he found an opportunity to do. And
there's one of the tests I've been working on. I have to send Vincent, but you can't really see it very well anyway. Yeah. So I'm not.
It was worth a try. It was worth a try.
Too much.
No, it's all white.
It's like a gritty. It's and what I like about where Vincent took the next poem that we're working on is an mini exhibition that's set in New York with this company, Head Crash Hotel, designed by Simon, who is a BAFTA award-winning director. Actually, they created this metaverse called Head Crash Hotel. We're going to be launching the project actually with this exhibition, which is set in New York. So couldn't think of a better collaborator to work with than Vincent on that. Coming from that whole artistic avant-garde scene in New York from the theater and film world out there. And so where he's taken his poetry, I feel is very like gritty and just actually a feeling that I haven't explored yet. Very like, yeah, Martin Scorsese aesthetic, but even more avant-garde than that, I would say. Something that definitely feels like it came out of the New York theater scene, and that is about real life, that is about sort of the grungy experience of the streets, that is about, the experience of real people as well. And so that will be coming up pretty soon in the next couple months.
There's another one I'm about to send you called Pretty Penny, about a girl.
Cool.
Yeah.
Can't wait to read it.
Yeah.
And obviously, as any of these things get rolled out, we'd be happy to have you on to talk more about those as well. But I know that you're both obviously very busy people. So despite the fact that there's obviously more to talk about, we'll leave it at that for now. Thanks so much for coming on. It's always awesome to speak to the folks helping grow the digital art and NFT community here in the Tezos ecosystem and helping keep Tezos at the forefront of the Web3 revolution. Is there anything else that either of you wanted to mention or touch on before we close down?
Yeah, I mean, it's such an honor working with Vincent, especially, his passion as an artist, and, the fact that he's sending me poems from the set of a Marvel TV show that he's working on. He's like, I hope one day when I'm, in my 60s, I still have that same energy and passion for art and poetry that he does. So, just thanks for joining me on this journey, Vincent, and thanks.
Well, you're obviously both very passionate about what you're doing, which is cool.
Yes.
It's great to see. Thank you very much again to everyone out there in Tezos land. Thanks for joining us on the TezTalks Radio. I'm Stu from the Tezos Commons, filling in for the fabulous Marissa True. Our awesome guests have been Vincent D'Onofrio and Laurence Fuller. Now let's go get involved in the digital art revolution.